Welcome back to another Spirit Island video. In this video, we're going to be continuing our series of Is This Spirit for You? In this video, we'll be focusing on a spread of Rampant Green. The setup is 2 presents on your starting board, 1 in the highest number wetland, and 1 in the jungle without Dahan. The playstyle says, it's fairly good at dealing with towns, but terrible at handling explorers, can get presence onto the board faster than most other spirits. Extra presence is good for targeting and especially for Choke the Land with Green, which is your special rule. This special rule can be extremely effective at slowing down invaders. Just be careful not to destroy sacred sites needed for power use. I find this is pretty accurate. One of the biggest problems that green has, or I shouldn't say problems, but one of the biggest puzzles you have is trying to utilize the special rule to right innate as well as stem the flow. And you have a lot of different tools that need sacred sites, and minimizing and maximizing those sacred sites and where they're positioned is part of the fun of playing basic green. It is a moderate complex spirit summary of powers. It has decent offense, less control, even less fear, very high defense, and a decent amount of utility. Flipping the spirit board over here, green has 2 special rules. It says choke the land with green. It says when invaders would ravage or build in a land with your sacred site, you may prevent it by destroying one of your presence in that land. And fun little fact here, when I first started playing this game back in 18, I actually missed this part here. I actually thought it just said in lands with presence. So I used to just put presence in random boards and then I would destroy the presence to stop builds and ravages. But that was way back when. So that was one of the missed rules I had made. Um, so steady regeneration, this is green's second special rule. It says when adding presence to the board via growth, you may optionally use destroyed presence. If the island is healthy, do so freely. If the island is blighted, do so. Well, it costs 1 energy per destroyed presence. This special rule is more thematic. I find it doesn't come up too often, but it does come up enough to where it is, well, looking at the growth options here, we are always placing a presence. In addition, we have the option to gain a card and reclaim, place another presence and get +1 play, and gain 3 energy and a power card. I really like green's growth options. All 4 of these are all pretty, I'd say pretty balanced, or I guess these 3. Um, 3 growth options. I find myself picking between them quite a lot throughout the game. The second one, I think I pick between 1 and 2 times, and that's mainly playing it on turn 2 tends to be very favorable, but there are some matchups where you use that G2 a lot more. Actually, if this is a spirit that you're interested in, I do have a green guide. It is a little bit outdated as in I don't cover NI in that guide, but I think it's a very good, if you want to see some strong green videos and why I think green is one of the strongest spirits in the game, definitely give it a look. Looking at the tracks, you end at 3-4. Free energy is significantly weak, but you always have access to this +3 energy option. If you ever want to tech towards majors, you just choose a lot more of your G3. You do have 2 plants, which is going to enable your innates quite easily, and it allows you to play those off element cards. And of course, 4 plays. I mean, 4 plays is excellent. Looking at the left innate and the right innate, the left innate is Creeper's Terror into Mortar. They slow powered 0 range. You can deal 1 damage to buildings, and then you have 2 repeats. One of my favorite things about this innate is it combos with Badlands. So if you have a single Badlands in a land, and you use the first tier, well, that's giving me 2 damage. And then you can do it again, 2 more damage, and then again 2 more damage. So it basically makes this innate just tear through buildings. Like a maximized innate here, that's gonna do 6 damage. That's nuts. One of my favorite miners with the spirit, and I don't want to get too much into strategy, but green's one of my favorite spirits, so I'm gonna talk a little bit more about it. It's a card like this, like Thriving Choke Fungus, right? It's a perfect element card that adds Badlands and Disease. Just a crazy, crazy card for green. Looking at that right innate, Sacred Site gives you either a defend 2, defend 4, or I guess, and also a blight removal. The blight removal, very rare. Just this is more win war. And the defend 2, defend 4, it's on the weaker end, but it is very essential to the kit. And that's because you're a Dahan spirit. You're pushing Dahan around, and you need to defend that counterattack. Looking at the power cards here, green has Field Choked with Growth. It's a zero cost slow, Sun, Water, Plant, one range. It allows you to push towns or move Dahan. And that Dahan movement is critical for that red innate. You have Stem the Flow of Fresh Water. It's a Sacred Site, zero cost, low power, water plant. One damage to buildings, and then if the land is mountain or sands, instead one damage to each building. And this is green's weakest card, but it combos very nicely with a card like Twin Days, because now you Twin Days your stem, that's going to do 2 damage, all buildings in a land, and that's just literally tears through an entire land if it's mountain or sands. But usually this card is on the weaker end. We have Overgrow in the Night. It's a 2 energy fast moon plant, 1 range. It allows you to add a presence from your tracks. Now this is going to allow you to further proliferate on the board, which will help enable your Choke the Lands with green, your left innate that's 0 cost, and also creating those sacred sites. You then have the option to gain fear if you don't want to place the presence. And finally, one of the reasons why green is the best spirit in the game is Gifted Proliferation. It's a fast power moon plant. Target another spirit. Target spirit adds presence up to 1 range from their presence. This allows you to have another spirit place presence and get ahead on their board. This card alone is why green is just so powerful. And then green also is just a very strong spirit. So you combine a strong kit with the best support card in the game, and you get a powerhouse. Now, is this spirit for you? Looking at the summary of powers, green is heavily defense, and I guess I agree a lot with the devs on their placement here. Like green has defense, the right innate, it has defense with overgrow, it has defense with that choked with land with green. This is so accurate. Utility, I find this pretty accurate too. I mean, get to proliferation, that's your main utility card, and it's insane. Fear generation, I think green gets less fear than what's depicted here. This is depicted because of overgrow in the night, and very rarely are you going to be using this for fear. If you want to get fear with this card, you're better off just drafting one of the fear cards in the deck here, like Rain of Blood, for 0 cost. But yeah, I think I very rarely use this for fear. It's more of a solo fear card than anything. That control is because of Fields Choked with Growth, and then of course the damage is from the stem as well as that left innate. So if you love playing a defensive spirit, this is the spirit for you. This isn't a fast, proactive spirit. You're not moving things around in the fast phase. You're more focusing on counterattacks and defending lands, as well as supporting the team. Also, the fear is quite low. This is a spirit that can do a major power build as well as a minor power build. Well, I guess it doesn't have strictly a major power build, but it can play majors as well as minors. There's really only 2 builds for green. If you like build diversity, this is probably not the spirit to be picking. Games tend to be very samey, whether you go top or bottom track. A lot of times you're going to be stalling the game out with your special rule and your right innate, and then you'll be killing the invaders with your left innate as well as the majors you pick up. Okay, let's look at the 2 NI aspects. The first one is regrowth, and this is going to replace your right innate here. And it says that you get to start with 13 destroyed presence, and you lose the steady regeneration special rule, which is kind of sad. I think this would be a lot more interesting if you got to keep that rule. And you get this new special rule, or this new innate. It says Unbelievable Regrowth, slow power, 1 range, must target jungle wetland. You have 4 thresholds, the 2 water, 3 plant. It allows this to hit any land type. And then you have 2 thresholds that add destroyed presence into a single land. And then you have a max threshold, which allows you to add a destroyed presence into an adjacent land. So the whole point of this aspect is to push the player towards choke the land with green. Skipping builds, skipping ravages. I'm not going to talk about so much analysis about this aspect, because there's some really cool things that you can do power card decks. I personally do not like this aspect. And that's because it pushes the spirit away from a Dahan defense spirit. Because remember, you're using your Dahan and then you're using your defense to clear invaders. This is more relying heavily on skipping lands that are building up, which in a way it's very different. You're like I said, you're not Dahan defense spirit, but I find it tends to be way more tanky and less more being able to keep up with the invaders. Like I find when I'm playing regrowth, I tend to need help just because you lose out on that Dahan defense. Okay, looking at the other aspect here, we have Tangles, and this is going to replace your left innate. You'll also lose Gift of Proliferation, and you'll gain this new unique. And I love the artwork on this card. It is awesome. Okay, let's see what it does. It's a fast power, slow. It adds a wilds, pushes an explorer, isolate the land, downgrade the city, and finally add another wilds. And you're going to replace that Gift of Proliferation with belligerent and aggressive crops. And this is a 1 energy slow sun fire plant. Sacred Site 2 range, targeting a land with buildings. It allows you to add a wilds, 1 damage to buildings. If there's adjacent wilds, 1 fear and an extra damage. And this card is so solid. For 1 energy, you're essentially doing 2 damage, 1 fear, and also add a wilds, which, I mean, let's be honest, that's a little bit too good for 1 cost, but you're losing Gift of Proliferation, which is probably the best unique in the entire game. This aspect, playtested a lot, and it probably ended up a little bit on the stronger end, but it's so much fun, and you really get to feel that wilds theme. You're adding wilds here, you're adding wilds with this card. You have isolates, have another way to add wilds. There's so many cool things you can do with this spirit. I always find myself coming back to it. Also, you don't have to play with Gift of Proliferation. So like you don't have to deal with people begging you to play the card, or like a lot of times what I see is people will play green and then they'll just reclaim loop Gift of Proliferation and just power up the team, which is fun. But for me, it gets old after a while. You see it maybe 1 or 2 games, and then a lot of times it just ruins the entire game for everybody. Because when I say ruin, it gets rid of the puzzle because a lot of the puzzle is playing your spirit while it's balanced to scale with invaders. But now when you play with green, green will give Gift of Proliferation out and just allow the other spirits to just completely outscale the invaders. And like I said, it kind of, for me, it gets rid of that puzzle. So this allows me to play green, get rid of Gift of Proliferation, and then I don't have to deal with other players begging me for the card. Another thing that I love about this aspect is it pushes the spirit to focus on sun cards, which, well, that's like my favorite element outside of plant, but green primarily focuses on moon because you want to hit that left innate. Well, now this says, hey, why don't you try to look up sun cards instead? And then you also have fields choked, so you have 2 sun cards. Yeah, it's just an incredible aspect. I love playing it, and I can't wait to do some games with this aspect. If you like this video, like, subscribe for more content. I will see you guys in the next video.